Moments after white smoke signaled the arrival of Pope Leo XIV, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through the Vatican. In a bold, face-to-face meeting, he challenged the new pope with a message so unexpected it left church insiders stunned and millions of Catholics asking what happens now. When the previous pope passed away, the Catholic Church needed to choose a new leader. This special election is called a conclave. It's not like regular elections with campaign speeches and voting booths. Instead, it happens behind locked doors in one of the most famous buildings in the world, the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City. 132 cardinals from all over the world traveled to Rome. These cardinals are like the top advisors in the Catholic Church. Only those younger than 80 years old could vote, which meant 117 cardinals would make this important decision. Before the voting began, each cardinal placed his hand on the Bible and made a serious promise. They swore to follow the rules and keep everything that happened inside the chapel a secret. They also promised to pick the person they truly believed would be the best pope, not just someone they personally liked. Once inside the Sistine Chapel, the massive doors were locked. The phrase extra omnes was announced, which means everyone out in Latin. All staff, reporters, and visitors had to leave. The cardinals were now completely cut off from the outside world. No phones, no internet, no newspapers. The voting process is pretty interesting. Each cardinal received a paper ballot where they wrote their choice. One by one, they walked to the front of the chapel, held up their folded ballot for everyone to see, and placed it in a special urn. After everyone voted, 3 cardinals counted the votes out loud. For someone to become pope, they needed 2/3 of the votes. If nobody got enough votes, they would burn the ballots and try again. The smoke from these burning ballots actually tells the world what's happening. Black smoke means no decision yet. White smoke means a new pope has been chosen. On the 5th round of voting, something exciting happened. The votes started to gather around one name, Cardinal Roberto Bellarmino from Italy. As the counting finished, the room fell silent. Cardinal Bellarmino had received exactly the number of votes needed. The dean of the College of Cardinals approached him and asked the big question: do you accept your canonical election as Supreme Pontiff? After a moment of prayer, Cardinal Bellarmino said, "Accepto. I accept." The cardinals broke into applause. He was then asked what name he would take as pope. Many popes choose a new name to honor a saint or previous pope they admire. Cardinal Bellarmino chose the name Leo XIV, becoming the 14th pope to use that name. Soon after, white smoke poured from the chapel's chimney. Thousands of people waiting in St. Peter's Square cheered when they saw it. The bells of St. Peter's Basilica began to ring. About an hour later, a cardinal stepped onto the balcony and announced to the crowd, "Habemus Papam, we have a pope." When Pope Leo XIV stepped onto the balcony for the first time, wearing the white papal robes, the crowd went wild. Videos of this moment spread quickly online, with millions of views within hours. People around the world watched as he gave his first blessing, Urbi et Orbi, to the city of Rome and to the world. But just as the world was celebrating its new pope, attention quickly turned to someone else. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, the man many believed could have been elected instead. Why didn't he become pope, and what role was he about to play? Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle wasn't just any cardinal in the Catholic Church. Born in Manila, Philippines in 1957, he grew up in a regular family that loved their faith. As a young boy, Tagle was known for being smart and kind, traits that would follow him throughout his life. After becoming a priest, Tagle quickly stood out because of how well he could explain complicated church ideas in ways that made sense to everyday people. He had a special gift for connecting with others, especially young people. When he spoke, people listened, not just because of what he said, but how he said it, with warmth and understanding. In 2011, Pope Benedict XVI made him the Archbishop of Manila, which is a big deal in the Philippines where most people are Catholic. Just a year later, he became a cardinal, one of the church's top leaders who helped guide Catholics around the world. What made Cardinal Tagle special was his humble approach. Unlike some church leaders who lived in fancy places, he chose to live simply. There were stories about him riding his bike to work and sharing meals with poor people in his community. He was known as the Smiling Cardinal because of his friendly nature. As a cardinal, Tagle took on important jobs in the Vatican. Pope Francis put him in charge of Caritas Internationalis, the church's main charity organization that helps millions of people worldwide. Later, he was moved to Rome to lead the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, which oversees how the church grows in different countries. Before the conclave, where cardinals would choose a new pope, many church experts considered Tagle a top candidate, what they call a papabile, meaning someone who could become pope. People liked that he came from Asia, where the church is growing fast, rather than from Europe, where most popes have come from. Tagle was seen as someone who shared many of Pope Francis's views. He cared deeply about helping the poor, protecting the environment, and making the church more welcoming. In his speeches and interviews, he often talked about how the church needed to listen more to regular people and their everyday struggles. Some Catholics hoped Tagle would become pope because they thought he could help the church connect better with younger generations. He was comfortable using social media and speaking about modern problems in a way that made sense to people today. However, others wondered if the church was ready for a pope from Asia, since this would be a big change from tradition. Some more traditional cardinals worried that Tagle might be too progressive on certain issues. In the weeks before the conclave, Tagle didn't campaign to become pope. That's not how things work in the church. Instead, he simply continued his work and occasionally spoke about the challenges facing Catholics around the world. When the cardinals gathered to elect a new pope, Tagle entered the Sistine Chapel as one of the most talked about candidates. His reputation for compassion, intelligence, and genuine faith had made him a respected figure among his fellow cardinals and Catholics worldwide. Tagle wasn't just a candidate, he was the closest thing to a crowd favorite. But what truly raised eyebrows was his deep connection to the man who did become pope. How did their shared past shape what would become a defining moment for the church? Cardinal Tagle and Pope Leo XIV go way back. Their friendship started about 15 years ago when they both worked on a church committee focused on helping poor communities. Leo, who was just a bishop then, was impressed by Tagle's genuine care for people and his ability to explain complicated church teachings in ways everyone could understand. The two men found they had a lot in common. Both came from countries where Catholics faced challenges. Both loved simple living despite their high positions in the church. And both believed the church needed to do more to help people who were struggling. When they'd see each other at big church meetings, they'd often share meals together. People who saw them noticed how they laughed easily in each other's company. One Vatican worker remembered bringing coffee to a room where they were supposed to be discussing serious church business, only to find them sharing funny stories from their childhoods. Their working relationship grew stronger when Leo became a cardinal and joined some of the same Vatican departments where Tagle worked. They collaborated on projects to help refugees and to make the church more welcoming to young people. During one conference in Manila, Tagle's hometown, Leo stayed extra days so Tagle could show him the community projects he supported there. Tagle respected Leo's thoughtful approach to problems. He once told a reporter, "When I'm stuck on a difficult question, I often think, what would Leo suggest? He has a gift for finding solutions that stay true to our traditions while still meeting today's needs." Leo, for his part, often praised Tagle's communication skills. At a press conference 3 years ago, he said, "Cardinal Tagle can explain the heart of our faith in 5 minutes better than I could in 5 hours." Their friendship wasn't without disagreements. They sometimes had different ideas about how quickly the church should change certain practices, but people close to them said they always discussed these differences respectfully, listening carefully to each other's views. When Leo was elected pope, Tagle was among the first cardinals to embrace him. Photographers captured the moment, a warm hug between friends who had walked a long path together. Some observers noted tears in Tagle's eyes, showing how deeply moved he was by his friend's new role. In the days following the election, Tagle helped Leo adjust to his new responsibilities. Having worked closely with the previous pope, Tagle could guide Leo through the complex daily schedule and introduce him to key Vatican staff. Their relationship represented something important in church leadership, friendship based on shared values rather than just political alliances. Many Catholics hoped this friendship would help shape a church that was both faithful to its core beliefs and responsive to today's challenges. What no one expected was that this long friendship would soon be tested by Tagle's surprising public statement, a moment that would raise questions about their relationship and the future direction of the church. After Pope Leo XIV's election, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle approached the new pope in a private meeting at the Apostolic Palace. Cardinal Tagle stood before Pope Leo XIV with a serious expression. The usually smiling Filipino cardinal looked directly at the new leader of the Catholic Church and spoke words that would soon travel throughout the religious world. "Holy Father," Cardinal Tagle began, "I must share something of great importance. Our church faces a crisis of faith in many parts of the world. Young people are leaving in record numbers, and many Catholics feel disconnected from church teachings." Tagle then revealed startling information, research showing that over 40% of young Catholics in developed nations no longer attended Mass regularly. He explained how modern challenges like social media, changing social values, and scandals had created a gap between the church and its people. But the real bombshell came next. "Your Holiness, I believe God is calling us to a new period of openness and reform," Tagle said. "We must consider updating certain teachings to speak to today's world while keeping our core beliefs intact." Cardinal Tagle specifically mentioned 3 areas needing attention: the role of women in church leadership, the church's approach to LGBTQ+ Catholics, and how the church handles divorced and remarried members. What made this statement so shocking was its timing and directness. Traditionally, cardinals show complete deference to a new pope, especially in the early days after an election. For Tagle to challenge the pope to consider reform so quickly broke with centuries of Vatican protocol. The statement wasn't delivered as criticism, but as a heartfelt plea from someone deeply concerned about the church's future. Tagle backed his points with both statistics and stories from his experiences in Asia and his work with Vatican departments. Inside the Vatican, the statement created immediate waves. Some officials saw it as disrespectful to the new pope's authority. Others viewed it as a brave and necessary call for change. Vatican staff members reportedly overheard heated discussions between cardinals in the days that followed. News of the conversation quickly spread beyond Vatican walls. Catholic newspapers worldwide ran headlines about Tagle's challenge and a call for change. Parish priests found themselves fielding questions from curious churchgoers about what this meant for the future. Religious experts noted that Tagle's close relationship with the previous Pope, Francis, made the statement even more significant. Many wondered if Tagle was continuing Francis's reform-minded approach or pushing for even more dramatic changes. For everyday Catholics, the statement offered either hope or concern, depending on their views. Progressive Catholics celebrated Tagle's boldness, while traditionalists worried about potential changes to church teachings they held dear. What made the bombshell truly historic wasn't just its content, but what it represented: a high-ranking church leader directly challenging a new pope to consider significant reforms right at the start of his papacy. In the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church, few comparable moments existed. The news spread like wildfire, but as headlines exploded and opinions clashed, the question remained: how would the world, and especially the church, respond to this act of open honesty? Within hours, Catholics and non-Catholics alike were discussing what many called the Tagle challenge. In Rome, the reaction among church officials was deeply divided. Cardinal Francesco Moretti from Italy called the move inappropriate and poorly timed, telling reporters that tradition demands we give a new pope time to establish his vision before pushing agendas. Meanwhile, Cardinal João Santos from Brazil publicly supported Tagle, saying, "This honest dialogue is exactly what our church needs right now." At the Vatican press office, spokesperson Sister Maria Rossi faced a barrage of questions from journalists. She carefully stated that His Holiness values Cardinal Tagle's perspective and is prayerfully considering all viewpoints as he begins his papacy. Social media exploded with opinions. The hashtags #Tagle Challenge and #Catholic Reform trended worldwide. One viral tweet from Catholic youth leader Miguel Hernandez read, "Finally, someone telling the truth about why my friends are leaving the church." It was shared over 50,000 times. In the Philippines, Tagle's home country, support was overwhelming. Crowds gathered outside Manila Cathedral, holding signs reading, "Proud of Cardinal Tagle" and "Listen to our Cardinal." Local bishops issued statements praising Tagle's courage while emphasizing their loyalty to the new pope. Catholic universities became centers of discussion. At Notre Dame University in the United States, students organized a forum titled "Reform or Tradition: The Future of Our Faith." Professor Elena Martinez, a religious studies expert, told students, "What makes this moment historic is not just what Cardinal Tagle said, but that he said it directly and immediately to a new pope." Parish priests found themselves addressing the topic during Sunday homilies. Father James Wilson from Boston told his congregation, "Whether you agree with Cardinal Tagle or not, this is a moment for all of us to think about what our church needs in today's world." That conservative Catholic media outlets like the Eternal Faith Network criticized Tagle, calling his statement borderline disrespectful and potentially undermining papal authority. Progressive Catholic publications such as New Church Dialogue praised the cardinal for bringing urgent issues into the open. A survey by Catholic polling organization Fides Research found interesting divisions. 72% of Catholics under 30 supported Tagle's call for reforms, while only 41% of those over 65 felt the same way. Non-Catholic observers weighed in too. Dr. Sarah Johnson, a religious studies professor at Harvard, noted, "This moment represents a fascinating tension in Catholicism between maintaining tradition and adapting to modern realities." In Africa, where Catholicism is growing rapidly, reactions were mixed. Bishop Emmanuel Okoye from Nigeria worried that Western-style reforms might not address the needs of our communities, while Sister Florence Mutua from Kenya supported Tagle, saying, "The church must speak to young people in ways they understand." Perhaps most telling were the quiet conversations happening in church halls and Catholic homes worldwide. Families debated the issues over dinner tables. Youth groups held special meetings to discuss what changes might mean for them. Elderly parishioners shared concerns during prayer groups. As 1 week passed, then two, the Vatican remained officially silent on Tagle's statement, which only intensified public interest. Religious commentators noted that this silence itself was significant, neither an embrace nor a rejection of the Cardinal's challenge. What became clear was that Tagle had started a conversation that wouldn't easily be quieted, regardless of how Pope Leo XIV might eventually respond. Reactions poured in from every corner of the globe, but what happens next might matter even more. Could this moment trigger real change in the Catholic Church, or spark a deeper divide? Looking ahead, this moment could reshape how Pope Leo XIV leads the Church's 1.3 billion followers. The Pope, who now knows Cardinal Tagle's true thoughts, might approach his leadership differently than planned. Trust between these two important church leaders will need time to rebuild, if it can at all. This situation could affect how other cardinals and bishops interact with the Pope. Some might become more careful about what they say, worried about how the Pope will react. Others might feel braver to speak up about changes they want to see in the church. Either way, the normal flow of ideas between church leaders might change. For everyday Catholics around the world, this tension at the top could mean changes in how the church handles important issues. The Pope might become more open to new ideas if Cardinal Tagle's words made him think differently, or he might become more set in his ways if he felt challenged or disrespected. Church policies on topics that matter to many Catholics, like how to welcome divorced people, the role of women, or how to address climate change, could shift based on how this relationship develops. If the Pope and Cardinal Tagle find common ground, they might work together on fresh approaches to these issues. The global reach of the church means these effects would be felt differently across countries and cultures. In Asia, where Cardinal Tagle is from, Catholics might watch closely to see if their perspectives gain more attention. In Europe and the Americas, where Catholic traditions run deep but attendance is dropping, any changes could affect whether people stay connected to the church. Inside the Vatican, the Pope's inner circle might change. Cardinal Tagle's position and influence could grow stronger or weaker depending on how the Pope responds to him over time. Other cardinals might align themselves with either the Pope or Cardinal Tagle, creating new groups within church leadership. The timing matters too, with the church facing challenges like fewer priests, declining attendance in some regions, and questions about its role in modern society. A united leadership is important. If the Pope and Cardinal Tagle can move past this moment and work together, they might help the church address these challenges more effectively. For young Catholics especially, how this situation unfolds could shape their view of the church. They're watching to see if church leaders can handle disagreement in healthy ways, and if different viewpoints are welcome. In the end, what started as a private conversation between two church leaders could help determine whether the Catholic Church becomes more open to change or holds more firmly to tradition in the years ahead. The words spoken that day might be remembered as either a turning point or a bump in the road for one of the world's oldest and largest religious institutions.